She's a dentist. You've heard that. But there are other things you probably don't know about Britt Baker, from how medical school threatened her wrestling success to how dating Adam Cole was basically serendipity. Training for professional wrestling is a major feat within itself. Britt Baker not only did that, but also attended medical school at the same time. In 2015, shortly after completing her undergraduate degree at Penn State University, Baker made her debut with International Wrestling Cartel. Britt also began her studies in dental medicine at the University of Pittsburgh. While studying, she joined the training sessions at Absolute Intense Wrestling in Cleveland, Ohio, in hopes of honing her skills. Britt Baker mentioned in an interview with Mel magazine that she felt like an outcast in dental school because being a wrestler at the same time was certainly not the norm. She said, "Dental students don't think it's cool if you're a wrestler. They think it's cool if you get straight A's and become an oral surgeon." Baker admitted that early in her career, she didn't really know what independent wrestling was and had to research it. After scouring independent wrestling on YouTube, she saw some of her favorite wrestlers, including Bryan Danielson and CM Punk. This gave her the reality check she needed that one day she could be a huge star just like them. In AIW, Baker was trained by none other than Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae. Despite not being signed to NXT yet, Gargano was still flying to Florida with Tommaso Ciampa to attend tapings. Gargano would then fly back to Cleveland to train Baker and the other students at 10 p.m. Baker credits Gargano and LeRae for her push to keep training despite the long drives back and forth from medical school. On an episode of Fightful Shooting Softly, Britt told Sean Ross Sapp that despite it being a hard time in her life,
but I would get so excited because I got to train with Candice and Johnny.
While Britt Baker was training to be a wrestler, Sasha Banks and Bayley were changing the game in women's wrestling by main eventing NXT takeovers and stealing the show. At a Steel City Comic-Con panel in 2021, Baker talked fondly about how Bayley and Banks inspired her.
When the tides were turning, they kind of paved the way for my generation of wrestling. Even though they're still in my generation, they came before me.
Baker did some trailblazing of her own when she competed in a lights-out match against Thunder Rosa on AEW Dynamite. On an episode of the podcast, The Sessions with Renee Paquette, Baker mentioned that many wrestlers reached out to her praising the match, including Mick Foley, Drew McIntyre, and most importantly, Bayley. Baker had pushed the envelope in women's wrestling and gotten the nod of approval from one of her biggest inspirations. When Britt Baker was getting her start, there was no AEW. In 2015, Britt Baker got a WWE tryout match alongside Bianca Belair and Lacey Evans. Baker, along with a small group of others, was asked to complete a second physical, moving them to the second stage of the tryout. In Britt's mind, she felt like she had made it, but Baker had also just started her first year of dental school. On an episode of Throwing Down with Renee Paquette and Misha Tate, Baker recalled a conversation with Canyon Seaman, who was the then Senior Director of Talent Development for WWE. Canyon pulled me aside and said, "You know, as a father, I have a hard time pulling you from your academic career. You're going to be a dentist. I want you to finish that." This news was heartbreaking for Baker, who was ready to drop dental school for a career in WWE. Things still worked out for her, though. Not only did she finish dental school, but she got her big break in AEW 4 years later. On the July 25th, 2016 episode of Monday Night Raw, Britt Baker found herself working as enhancement talent for Nia Jax, who had recently been drafted to Raw. Baker lost in a squash match, making Jax look strong on her new brand. In an interview with Fightful, Baker recalled that referee John Cohn told her to put her gear on because she was going to bump around a bit. Baker found the warning surreal. There were rumors that Britt was heated with Jax after getting her nose busted open in the match, but Britt shut those rumors down. Baker's squash match with Jax helped open other opportunities for her in WWE. 2 years later, she appeared again in the 2018 Mae Young Classic tournament in a dark match. It's no secret that Britt Baker and Adam Cole are a power couple in wrestling. Wrestling runs on a unique schedule, and finding a partner willing to work around that schedule can be tough. So wrestlers often date other people in the business. Cole and Baker's love story is a little less traditional than that, though. While in Hershey, Pennsylvania for a dental school conference, Baker matched with Cole on Bumble. On Vids I Dig with Chris Van Vliet, Baker admitted that she didn't recognize Cole despite knowing him as a wrestler before. She said she'd only seen him with wet hair and wearing trunks in wrestling matches before, and added,
It said his name was Austin. So I'm like, this guy looks so familiar, but I don't know Austin.
Baker and Cole chatted for a while on Bumble, and it wasn't until Cole came back from New Japan Pro Wrestling and won the Ring of Honor title for the third time that the two finally went on a date. Britt went from not recognizing Austin, which is Cole's real name, to eventually moving in with him in Orlando. In April and May of 2022, both Adam Cole and Britt Baker competed in the first ever Owen Hart Foundation Cup tournament. When the tournament ended at AEW Double or Nothing, each had won the men's side and the women's side of the tournament, respectively. But that was not the first time Baker and Cole had won gold together. In August of 2017, Baker and Cole competed for the Big Top Tag Team titles at the Wrestle Circus Cody Rhodes Summer Circus show. Britt was on a hot streak that summer. 2 weeks prior to this match, she had captured the Iron City Women's Championship from Penelope Ford. At Wrestle Circus, Cole and Baker defeated Beretta and Rocky Romero, also known as Roppongi Vice, to win the Big Top Tag titles, marking a major win for the couple early into Britt's career. Things started to pick up for Baker from there. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes a wrestler signed to one company will attend a competing company's show as a fan. Usually, that wrestler will not be shown in any crowd shots, but Britt Baker was shown front and center on NXT TakeOver War Games 2019. This was shocking to many because WWE generally didn't allow their talent to attend other wrestling shows. AEW CEO Tony Khan did not adopt this rule, allowing AEW talent to attend shows as they wished. Britt watched her boyfriend compete in a high-stakes War Games match. Adam Cole had tried to watch Britt wrestle a year earlier at the All In pay-per-view, but Cole worked for WWE at the time, so he wasn't allowed to. On an episode of AEW Unrestricted, Britt recalled the frustration of this.
For All In, actually, he had a plane ticket booked, and then they told him you can't go.
Baker explained that Cole flew to Chicago the weekend of the show anyway to support her. He watched All In the hotel room on his phone. Cole later joined Britt in AEW, so now they can watch each other wrestle from the sidelines every week. Britt Baker and Wardlow are featured regularly on AEW television. These two homegrown talents of AEW actually have a history with each other stemming from before AEW was born. Wardlow and Baker both began their wrestling careers in International Wrestling Cartel. When Britt got to AEW, one of the first people she recommended for the company to look into hiring was Wardlow. Then AEW Executive Vice President Cody Rhodes took Baker's advice and sent Raymond Lloyd, better known as WCW's Glacier, to IWC for a seminar. Lloyd watched one of Wardlow's matches and called Rhodes to say Wardlow was a talent worth hiring. Wardlow said on an episode of Insight with Chris Van Vliet,
and then I think there was one more individual from Warrior Wrestling that contacted Cody about me. So it was like this perfect storm. He kept hearing my name from.
So Mr. Mayhem has Baker, among others, to thank for his AEW success. Britt Baker and commentator Tony Schiavone's magical on-screen dynamic initially involved Britt chastising Schiavone for once being a Starbucks barista or for just trying to do his interviewing job. The two proved to have great comedic timing, and a major reason for that is Britt and Tony get along so well behind the scenes. Britt has mentioned that she loves talking with Tony because he has a calming presence. Baker also credits a part of the success of her heel character to the chemistry she has with Schiavone. On an episode of Talk is Jericho, Britt mentioned Tony's influence on her on-screen persona. He helps my character so much because he plays along better than anybody in the entire locker room could, because of who he is and what he does and how he interacts. Britt's first major heel promo took place on the Jericho Cruise with Tony Schiavone as her verbal punching bag. Since then, fans have largely been in agreement that Britt's heel run has been some of the best work in the AEW women's division to date. Before Britt Baker tore it up with her heel run, AEW brought her in as a babyface. On an episode of the podcast Sunday Night's Main Event, Britt claimed her initial attempt to be a fan favorite failed because the character she was playing was not really who she is. She even blamed commentator Jim Ross for her babyface run not getting over. Britt felt that JR constantly hammered to the audience that she was a dentist to the point where it was overkill. Despite the lackluster character, Britt was still happy to be in a major company doing what she loved and trained to do. During a training session, AEW EVP Kenny Omega approached Britt about turning heel. Baker had never been a heel before, but she was interested in switching it up. Britt mentioned that she channeled her inner WCW era Chris Jericho as inspiration for how to act on camera. She said, "So, just like my whole experience with AEW, I felt like I was just kind of thrown into the fire. Let's go. Let's see if this works." And it did. The travel schedule of a wrestler is daunting and exhausting, leaving little time to be home, let alone work in a dental office. Britt Baker knows that she will be busy every Wednesday night, so her dentistry practice is closed that day. That said, Britt told Bleacher Report that both of her worlds are very understanding of each other. She praises AEW for allowing her to fly to a Dynamite show either Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. Baker says that AEW also always makes sure to get her on the first flight Thursday morning so she can make it back to the dental office on time to get to work. And of course, patients inquire about the doctor's weekly exploits in AEW. Baker says she likes to try to keep her two lives separate, but will talk about her wrestling career if a patient asks. Sometimes it's hard to keep her worlds apart, especially if Baker brings bruises and black eyes back to the office with her.